Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Shea, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the field.
Every product we develop is really inspired by some of the real life experience that we have with our son.
60% of all toys last year were sold on Amazon, which is incredible.
Be passionate about it because it's a road, it's a journey.
Like when you have an idea that you think is like gonna somewhat like change the world, make things better, I'd say go for it.
We'll guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Welcome back to another episode of Toy Business Unboxed podcast. I'm your host, Jason Shea. For today's episode, we have Keith, the founder of Thunderworks Games, joining our show. Keith has spent 15 years in the video game industry before he get into the board game industry. And what started out with a single Kickstarter campaign have been building into a full-fledged, very successful company with 14 original games, 7 expansion, and over 800,000 copies sold worldwide since he started. So thank you so much for joining us on the show and sharing your journey with our audience today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So like I say in the intro, you spent a lot of time in the video game industry. Can you kind of share with our audience on your experience in the video game industry and how you got into the board game industry at the end?
Yeah, sure. I started in the video game industry as a QA tester, like a QA engineer. So I was just looking for a job in a career that I had some passion for after getting burnt out on the career I had before that. And so I was in QA for many years, and I ended up moving into production, so kind of project management and kind of overseeing different groups of teams. I worked on the publishing side at Konami, and then ended up moving to Raven Software in Middleton, Wisconsin, on the development side. Then once I was in development, we were working with designers and artists and animators more directly, whereas on the publishing side, I was working more with marketing and sales folks. But while I was at Raven, Kickstarter was kind of starting to become a thing, and I was watching that space, and I was getting involved in the board game hobby. I was starting to play lots of board games and meeting lots of people that played board games. And I saw guys like Jamie Stegmaier and some of the other folks at the time having a lot of success there. And they were kind of doing tell-all blogs of how they were doing what they were doing in online. And I was ignorant and foolish enough to say, that doesn't look so hard. I could probably do that. And and me and a few fellow folks in the video game world started designing board games on the side. We had been playing games over lunch. We decided that we were going to try to design some of our own, and I kind of took it to what I considered a near final product. Decided to throw it up on Kickstarter, and Raven Software is owned by Activision, and they had a program where they allowed people to do side projects and side hustles if you wanted to, as long as you got approval.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And so I was allowed to do that, and it had some mild success. Yeah. And so I was kind of doing my video game job during the day, and then kind of pushing hard on my board game job in the evenings. Yeah. Eventually, I had done a few campaigns and was successful enough in which there was enough money coming in that I could kind of say, I could probably do this full time. I clearly had a lot of passion for it. Yeah. So in 2017, I started the company in 2013. Maybe 2017, I quit my job at the game developer and started doing board games full time. And I worked as a one-man show in my basement for a few years, and kind of was successful enough over the years to kind of bring on some more people and grow the thing.
That's actually a common story I also face in the toys and game industry, especially. Me, myself, I also started out in my tiny apartment. Yeah. And doing it on the weekend when I first started my own toy company, like 10 years ago when I first started. I think you started even earlier than I did. Yeah. So, but going back, can you share with the audience, like as much as you remember, of the first product that you worked on? What was that journey look like? How long does that took you, and some of the lessons you learned?
So the first game, I went into designing board games with like really big eyes. I had this grand plan of this like really elaborate product I was going to make. And I had tested it developed it and tested it for, I don't know, maybe 6 to 9 months. And I was kind of getting ready to get on that onboarding ramp onto Kickstarter. I ran into some roadblocks with kind of butting heads with my graphic designer and kind
I
of
see.
trying to figure out how to do some of this stuff. And
Yeah.
my graphic designer and I ended up kind of splitting ways. So I was at this crossroads where I was like, okay, do I start over like this part of the process, or I decided to kind of make an immediate turn and say, let's take this big game that has all these different pieces and it's fairly complicated, and let's focus on a product that is smaller, that's more manageable, that is a smaller scale. So that original game that I had worked on was this robot combat game that I actually have never gotten around to publishing, but someday I probably will. But I switched to a smaller game that was just a box with some cards and a few.
What is it called? What
It's
is the
called
first game?
Bullfrogs is the name
Oh,
of that.
Bullfrog. That's the first game. Okay.
And so that was the first game I put on Kickstarter and published. A small box, deck of cards, few wooden pieces. And so there's definitely kind of taking the advice of like, maybe don't start to make the biggest, most complicated thing you can imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Start
overcomplicated yet. Yeah.
And grow. Because there's a lot of lessons to learn, and you might as well learn them on a smaller project that's not as risky, has a higher chance of actually coming out someday.
That's also less moving pieces that you need to figure out as well.
Exactly.
Especially for the Kickstarter itself, that's already a lot of moving pieces you need to figure out.
I mean, not only like building a Kickstarter page and building an audience for it, but then afterwards, the process of manufacturing and fulfillment is much more complicated. The more kind of different SKUs and
that campaign was back in 2014.
Yeah.
That was very, very different back then, right? Can you also share your experience back then? That's 12 years ago. So.
Yeah, when I started on Kickstarter, it was like a place where people could go with an idea.
Yeah.
Now you have to kind of have a finished product that looks amazing and really do a hard sell to be successful. Back then, it was more of an optimistic time for people on there, and people were just excited to be part of like a Kickstarter process.
Yeah,
and things are different now for sure. For people who are kind of getting into Kickstarter or GameFound or any other crowdfunding platform now, I think it's a lot harder than it was 10, 15 years ago. There's more competition.
I think people's expectation is also higher, and people have been burned a couple times on the platform where it never delivered. So the expectations keep on going higher and higher.
And people are getting more, like you said, people have been burned. So I think people are more careful and more conservative about what they're putting their money towards on Kickstarter. And as a creator, every time I hear a story about somebody who had a bad experience on Kickstarter or a creator that kind of ghosted a project, like all that does is create potential, like it creates more reservation for people who might be interested in backing like a more like a legitimate project.
Like ours. For sure. Yeah, that's definitely more difficult over the years. But I mean, you have been in the industry for more than a decade now. What other changes have you noticed in the last decade?
I mean, definitely board games was a big space on Kickstarter. But then in the last 5 years or so, there's been competitors that have shown up. GameFound is another crowdfunding platform specifically for board games. So that's kind of fractured the audience a little bit. So there used to be like, if you were a crowdfunding project, you were on Kickstarter. Now, you could be on backer kits, or you could be on a GameFound, or you could be on Kickstarter. So there's more options. So there's more competition, but that also means like I don't think there's as much kind of organic traffic of, well, let's see what the new board games are. I'm going to go to Kickstarter. It's like now you've got 3 different options to go to.
Also, last year, GameFound actually acquired Indiegogo last year too. So
right.
That also made the whole marketplace a little bit different.
Yeah.
Now Indiegogo is really trying to go really hard against the Kickstarter community because they are trying to go head in head against Kickstarter.
I mean, and in general, competition is good. Like those platforms should improve as a result of that competition. But it definitely kind of fractures the audience, and it creates this, we've always used Kickstarter, so I'm tend to want to continue to use Kickstarter because that's where my audience has been. But I'm always looking at the other platforms saying, is it time to switch? Does it make sense?
Have you tried to launch a campaign on GameFound? If so, how was your success compared to Kickstarter?
I have not, but I've been tempted to.
I see.
Maybe someday. We'll see.
Yeah, because you already have a lot of pre-existing audience with all the campaign you already did over the years. It's a little bit harder to migrate them into a different platform.
And I think some people, I think it's possible to do a campaign on multiple platforms, either subsequently or simultaneously.
Yeah.
I've always thought about maybe trying that as well, but running a crowdfunding campaign is a ton of work. And the idea of
Yes.
doing it at two places at the same time is kind of like, man, I just want to get back to making cool games and less about finding ways to
Yeah.
sell them. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
100%. For sure, for sure. And what are some of the projects you have for the rest of the year? Are you doing more Kickstarter campaign for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so we have a Kickstarter coming up in June 16th, Tuesday,
Okay.
June 16th. So that's less than a month away.
Yeah.
That is for an expansion for one of our existing titles called Stonespine Architects, which is a drafting game where you're building a dungeon in front of you and you're passing cards to your neighbors. The expansion now adds a new element where you're the dungeon owners, so you're like managing monsters that are fending the heroes that are trying to get in and steal your treasure and stuff.
Okay.
So pretty sizable expansion. And it kind of turns the game into kind of a 2.0 version. We put a lot of work into it, so we're excited about that coming. And that's going to include the option to have like a bigger box so that you can fit the base game and the expansion in there as well. Board gamers love storage. Like having a box that's really well thought out to store their games in, that's really important to board gamers. And so we're going to offer like a really nice, plastic insert.
I want to also dive into your background in the video game kind of industry. Which of some of the skill that you feel like is transferred really well directly into board game publishing based on what you do currently?
Yeah.
What do you kind of learn from this experience between the two industries?
There's actually surprisingly a lot of skills that transfer, right? So when I was in video games, I was managing a creative team. I was managing illustrators and 3D artists, and I was worried about budgets and schedules and meetings and communication and removing roadblocks from workflows, and like all that stuff transfers 100% into managing a board game as well, right? So I'm still working with creative people. Sometimes that creative person is me, but a lot of times it's other, managing a schedule, worrying about budgets, doing lots of, kind of thinking about how we're going to market these things and what the best way to place them are. I mean, when I was at Raven, which was owned by Activision, I was kind of one small cog in a very big machine. At Thunderworks, we have, including myself, 5 employees, and all the buck stop with me. So I make a lot of the decisions. Yeah. Which is nice because I have a lot of control, but it also means that there's nobody to like pass work to if everything's going fine.
And you also are in charge of all the wrong decisions that you make too.
The mistakes are mine as well as the brilliant decisions. So,
of course,
and I like having that level of control. But every once in a while, I miss like just being one of the cogs in the machine and not having so much responsibility. But it offers a lot of freedom and a lot of ownership over the things that I do, right? So any product that we put out, like I had my hand to some degree on everything about it. Whereas then when I worked on Call of Duty game, and it's like I can't like point at the screen and be like, I made that. Like I was part of the process, but there's nothing that I can really kind of feel like I own. Whereas the opposite is true with these board games.
For sure. That's the main difference between entrepreneur versus employee mindset, right?
Yeah.
So very different mindset. And I also want to kind of dive into, because obviously you have a lot of success over the years, like growing and scaling your brand. One of the most common question as board game or toy and game company scale is like what channel to focusing on, because there's online channel, there's Kickstarter, there's retail, there's Amazon, there's fair, there's international expansion. Like with a small team like yours, or a lot of people in the industry with small team, how do you decide which channel to really prioritize and spend a lot of your time and energy on to really grow the business as a whole?
So we're in all those channels, right? We sell direct to retailers, direct to consumers via Kickstarter. We sell on Fair.
Yeah.
We try to find as many different sales channels that could potentially generate sales as we can.
Yeah.
Our main focus, it's tough to say. I would say at the end of the day, the Kickstarter channel is probably where we spend the most time. But it really depends on the product, right? So like something like Kickstarter isn't always a great fit for like a small $20 game, because the audience there is usually looking for like deluxeified or like really fancy special versions of things. So if we have a really more expensive game that has like lots of really fancy pieces, that isn't something that a retailer is particularly excited about eating up a bunch of their shelf space with, then Kickstarter is clearly the best channel for that. We have other games. We released a game last year called Fliptoons that is a much smaller game, much more kind of family friendly, that really belongs on on a store shelf, whether it be a
Yeah.
friendly local game store or a Target or a Walmart or whatever, then we'll kind of focus more on pushing our efforts for that title onto those channels. Amazon is always a big deal, right? We sell
Yeah.
quite a bit on Amazon, but it's not our number one focus. I would say
Yeah.
Kickstarter, then retailer, then Amazon, and then kind of everything else.
I see. And with a very lean team, obviously you're managing manufacturing, art direction, design, distribution with like 5 people. How do you delegate? Like who is in charge of what in your team? Just for other like team out there, like how do
This is
you
probably
like, make it
common.
efficient?
Like I started out as me doing everything. So
Yeah.
then I figure out what part do I like the least. And then I try
Yeah.
to find somebody that can do that. And then I give
Okay.
them that part of it, right?
Okay.
Or if it's somebody that, like my second employee was my wife, I just say, which part of this do you want to do? And then I can kind of give that stuff to her.
I see.
We still do like annual evaluation of like looking at
Mm.
all the different things that need to be done to continue to function as a company and figure out what people like, what people wish they were doing more of, what they wish they were doing less of, and kind of throw some things around. But the way that we currently divide it is that, as the owner, and we don't currently have like a finance guy. We have
Yeah.
in the past, but we don't currently. So like that kind of ends up falling on me.
Okay.
So
Okay.
all the finances and then all the operations ends up kind of falling on me. And
It's to operation.
I love art direction, so that's like I'm never going to give that up.
Okay.
And all my experience in video games, I was in QA for many years, gave me like
Yeah.
a really pretty sharpened attention to detail. And like when you're manufacturing a product, like really kind of locking in all, especially when it comes to like writing a rule book or making sure all the manufacturing details are spot on before you print 10,000 of these things.
Yeah, it can get very expensive if there's a mistake.
Right. So I've learned, unfortunately, that I can't trust anybody but myself to kind of do the final check on some of these things. So I end up doing all the manufacturing as well. So, but in terms of other people, I've got a graphic designer who's making board games. A lot of the work is graphic design. So he has a lot on his plate. And then I've got a developer who does kind of creative playtesting, and he does kind of the work that I started doing, and I kind of have given it to him.
Oh, okay.
I still need like the final sign off,
Sign
but
off.
developing a game and getting lots of play tests and taking notes and making changes and trying new things and physically building prototypes, that takes a lot of work and a lot of time.
Does he also come up with new idea, or are you the other ones coming up with new idea for new games?
Usually it's a mix. Sometimes, usually it's stuff coming from outside of the company, like a game designer will pitch us a game. Sometimes they're my games that I come up with.
Yeah.
But we haven't published a game that my developer came up with from like the beginning, but he has like done like, well, he's going to design how it works for single player or the solo mode, or he's going to like make some big massive change. He has made some massive changes for the better, but we haven't had anything that like was ground zero his idea. But
I see.
for me personally, like, where the idea comes from is not really that important. It's really about the execution. Like
execution, yes. That's
the number of great ideas I hear on a daily basis can be overwhelming. So it's like there's so many good ideas that could be made into something amazing, but you just got to pick and choose and like just try to ignore everything else or like take note of everything later. Because if you chase every great idea, you're never going to get anything done. So it's all about the execution. And I would like to think that even if an idea is good but not great, like my team is talented enough that we can make it great through development and additional work. Just to finish the docket, I've got a marketing person who does. She also manages our website, and she also does all the Amazon stuff, she does all the web stuff and manages ads and stuff like that. And then I've got my salesperson that works with retailers and distributors and kind of does some of the she writes contracts and sends invoices and that kind of stuff. So she does parts of the financial part that I don't do. So that's the breakdown. As any entrepreneur, I assume as an entrepreneur, as your company grows, it's nice to be able to kind of push things off and make a little bit more breathing room for yourself so that you can do a better job of the things that you are doing instead of doing kind of half of the things horribly and half of them like serviceable.
I can relate to that myself.
So that's been a fun process to kind of get to more like an equilibrium and like instead of like one person doing 5 jobs, it's like, well, now, everybody's doing a job. Yeah, they're wearing multiple hats, but they're not like, nobody's putting in like 80 hours a week or anything like I used to when I was starting.
Yeah. For sure. And I also want to congratulate you for being nominated and I think won one of the international award for one of your board game. You want to kind of talk about the game a little bit for our
Yeah,
audience?
so there's a game called Cartographers. It's our best-selling game. It's a fantasy map drawing game where everyone is sitting around the table drawing a fantasy map and trying to get points for the right, shapes and terrain next to each other. And so that has been our most selling title. It was nominated for the Kennerspiel. So the Spiel des Jahres, which is German for Game of the Year, is like the biggest award in board games.
Okay, yes.
It comes out once a year, and there's 3 categories. There's the Game of the Year, there's the Gamers Game of the Year, and then there's like the Family Game of the Year.
Oh, family
So
games. Okay.
the big overall, kind of the more complicated one, and then like the kid one. I think 3 to 5 games that are nominated, and Cartographers was nominated for the Kennerspiel, which is the Gamers Game.
I see.
And there's a lot of different organizations that give awards for toys and games in the U.S.
Yeah.
Like Mensa Select, and there's a bunch of other ones.
Yeah.
But in comparison, this German award, it makes a huge difference in the sales of a game. So like there's a lot of people, especially in Europe, that they buy one game a year and it's whatever won that award. And that's just what they do.
Oh,
They don't care what it is. It's like this organization says this is the best game. That's the one I'm going to buy, and we're going to play it for a year. So because it was nominated, the game sold very, very well, especially in Europe. The German board game market is very, very big. The US market is very big too, but the German market is very big. And there's some other larger markets. Poland is pretty big. UK is big. And there's other kind of medium and smaller size markets. But being nominated for that award was fantastic. And we sold a lot of copies, and that game continues to sell, right? Board games are a little bit like movies, in which like when they come out for like 3 to 6 months, they're kind of a hot thing. And then as maybe even less, maybe a couple months, then people are on to the new big thing, right?
Yeah.
Because we've got, I mean, depending on who you talk to, 3,000 to 5,000 games come out every year.
Yeah.
And that, there's only 52 weeks in a year. So that means there's a lot of games coming out every week for people who are fans of these. So there's a lot of games that will sell 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 copies, and then they're kind of done. But then there's other things where they sell well and they continue to sell well. And those we call an evergreen title.
Yeah.
Thunderworks has been lucky enough to have 2 of those. One is Cartographers that we were just talking about, and another one is called Roll Player, which is a dice drafting game. So the success of those games, Roll Player came out in 2016. We continue to sell well on it, a decade later. Cartographers came out, I want to say 18, and that is still our best-selling game and continues to do well.
Yeah.
So we're always looking to find that next evergreen that can kind of keep our finances more stable, so we can take risks on kind of more different games, looking for those home runs or those evergreen titles.
Yeah, actually, that's actually a lot of the publishing company also want to create those evergreen titles. But based on our experience, what make those titles particularly evergreen?
I mean, it's if there was like a recipe of what an evergreen was, then everybody would have an evergreen, right?
Yeah, true.
What do I think it is? Well, I can tell you why I think that we have what I think is, actually we have a third evergreen that we published last year. We've printed it 4 times now, but I don't want to call it an evergreen yet until like I get another year behind me. And Cartographers is an evergreen because it hit in a time in which that style of game was suddenly very popular. And it's complicated enough to kind of keep gamers interested, but it's simple enough that kind of more casual players can enjoy it. It also can play any number of players, so it can play literally as long as you've got a piece of paper and a pen. You can play with everybody else, so the player count is pretty important in that one. It's small, it's a smaller box, and it's not crazy expensive. So I think all those things contributed. There was a big flood of these types of games. They're called either roll and writes or flip and writes. They're kind of drawing games. There was a bunch of them that kind of all hit the market at the same time because it was getting really popular. And kind of coming out of that, Cartographers was like one of the 1 or 2 that continued to be well regarded and kind of rose to the top of the best of those kinds of games.
I see.
So that's kind of the gameplay is a big part of it. Role
Yeah.
player, I think, continues to be popular because it's a real nice intersection of a Venn diagram of people who like role playing games and people who like board games. And a lot of
Okay.
times those two worlds don't live that close together. But
I see.
this game is kind of the marriage of those two ideas of like it
I
takes
see.
someone who plays role playing games and like if I play Dungeons and Dragons or something and I get together with my friends and I create my character, it kind of takes that experience of role playing and turns that into a card or board game. So
Mm,
it attracts not only board gamers but also role playing fans.
okay.
That creates an audience for this to live for a long time.
Oh, I
And it
see.
also is relatively unique.
Mhm.
People are always looking for innovation, right? So it leaned on some things that had been done previously, but not in this configuration by any stretch of the imagination. So
I see.
it's kind of that's continued to do well because those both board games and RPGs continue to be popular, and
Mhm.
the people have a lot of nostalgia and love for Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. So
I see. Thank you
our
so much.
latest one, Fliptoons, kind of leans on nostalgia a little bit as well. It has
Mhm.
artwork that reminds people of Sunday morning cartoons when they were kids in the 80s, and that has like a really unique look to it. And I think that is one of the reasons why it's done well. It
Mhm.
also has like a feeling like you're playing a slot machine. So people like gambling, and it has a little bit of a like
Mhm.
gambling kind of feel to it. So I think that's another reason why that.
I see. And during the pre-interview, you also mentioned localization is also a key part of your business model. How does it work from your perspective? Do you license IP to other international partner? What is like the logistic behind this?
Yes, I mean localization is about 30% of our income every year.
Oh, that's
And
a piece. Yeah.
yeah, and usually what we do is we license our products to other publishers in non-English speaking territories,
Yeah.
and depending on the partner, the deal is structured a little bit differently, but it's
Mhm.
either we license them the product and they pay a down payment, and then they have it translated and manufactured for their territory, and then they pay us a royalty per unit manufactured,
Mhm.
or we will manage the manufacturing for them, in which we sign a deal and then they send us the translated files and we have it manufactured. And then our partners will, once they've paid their bill, they can pick it up from the factory and take it to their
Mhm.
home territory and sell it however they wish. So,
Mhm.
some of our games are in over 22 languages,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and we're always kind of looking for opportunities in that way. Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the part that I like most about running this business is making new games and
Yeah.
interacting with my customers. So like when it comes
Mhm.
to kind of sales and marketing and localization, these are like areas that I don't have a lot of passion for, but I understand are kind of essential for
Yeah.
the success of the
Yeah.
business.
Of course. Yeah.
But yeah, no matter what I'm doing, I always am going to be wishing I was working on the next game. But unfortunately, I got to sell the games
Yes.
to be able
Yeah.
to continue making new ones.
Of course. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work as well for localization. Not just finding them, but also vetting the right partner because you want to make sure they actually represent your game
Right.
well for their local region or market.
Yeah, and to facilitate that, we go to international conventions
Mhm.
and meet with different partners.
Hmm.
We have never like imported a game from a different company before. So like if there
Oh,
was a game that was a Japanese game and they're like, hey, do you want to publish this in the US in English? Some US publishers will do that. It's not something that we've done before, but I've been
okay.
tempted to. Like if it was the right game, I would do it. But
I see.
my desire for creative control, like I'm always going to want changes, or I'm going to want things to, things to be changed to fit the Thunderworks brand. And that's usually not
Yeah.
how those deals work. It's like, here's the game. Do you want it or not? Versus like, here's an idea. Are you interested in developing it further for the US market? Like that's the kind of thing I would be looking
Yeah.
for, but
Yeah.
that would be more work too. So,
True.
and, I'm always interested in like working on my own stuff more than importing somebody else's thing, just
Mhm.
because that's what I'm passionate about.
Mhm.
But there are US publishers that do a lot of that, where they find great games from other countries and they translate them into English and release them here. That's not something we do.
I see, of course. So thank you for sharing that. So as well, wrapping up today's interview, if you have to share just one piece of advice with someone that's getting started in the toys and game industry, what would that be?
It's all about networking. just meet everybody you can and ask lots of questions and be as curious as you can and reach out when you need help and offer help for people who need it. So, I mean, it's like anything in life. A lot of opportunities come just from being in the right place at the right time and knowing the right person. So just focus on learning as much as you can and get to know as many people as you can and be an asset to them so that maybe someday they might be an asset for you.
Yeah, of course. So, well, thank you again for being up here on our show, sharing your experience, your wisdom, and also journey with our audience today.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
For our audience who would like to learn more about you and your business, where is the best place for people to find you online?
Sure. www.thunderworksgames.com is our website. All kinds of information about us and our products. You can also find us on all the other places like Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. But our main website, thunderworksgames.com, is probably the best way to get started on that.
I see. Yeah, we'll make sure we put that in the show note. And thank you again for your time. And for our audience, thank you for tuning in to this particular episode of Toy Business on Box podcast. I hope today's conversation gives you some practical insight and also fresh inspiration for growing your own toys for game brands. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Toy Launch, a leading marketing and growth partner for toys and game company. At Toy Launch, we help brands scale on Amazon and beyond through full-service account management, advertising, SEO, creative, catalog optimization, influencer marketing, and more. If you're looking for a proven team that really understands the toys and game industry and digital marketing, we're here to help. If you'd like a personalized breakdown of your brand, opportunity, and your best next step, you can always schedule a free consultation session with us. Just visit toy-launch.com/schedule. If you also want to connect with other toys and game founders, feel free to join our free community, Toys and Game Launchpad, to connect with other founders in the community as well. For more resource, update, and industry insight, visit us at any time at toy-launch.com. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, keep bringing joy to toys. This is Jason Shea signing off on the Toy Business on Box podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good one.